Today we are making a vegan giant cinnamon roll. This cinnamon roll is a whole 10 inches across. I used my favorite sticky bun cinnamon roll recipe and I made it vegan. As a kid growing up on the farm, we had lots of eggs and butter and heavy cream. But in this recipe, I'm substituting plant-based eggs, plant-based butter, and coconut milk instead of heavy cream. Make sure you watch all the way to the end, where I give you my SIS, Simple is Smart tips for this cinnamon roll. Let's get baking. We are going to start by making the dough for the giant cinnamon rolls. You are going to put those 4 cups of flour in the bowl of a stand mixer. To that you will want to add 1 teaspoon of sea salt and 4 teaspoons of SAF Gold Instant Yeast. If you don't have the SAF Gold, you can use the red. If you don't have either of those, use 3 packets of yeast. Next, you're going to add your liquid. This is your plant-based eggs. I use just eggs, and 3/4 of a cup is equivalent to 4 large eggs. In addition to that, you're going to add 1/3 of a cup of water. Put that on your stand mixer and mix on low initially and then on medium until everything is combined and you have a very stiff dough. That's normal for your dough to be very stiff. Now you're going to go ahead and add your vegan butter. Add a total of 6 tablespoons. I add 1 to 2 tablespoons at a time and mix on medium. It takes a while to mix the butter in, and it initially looks like it isn't going to incorporate, but just keep mixing. It takes probably about 5 minutes to mix all that butter in, and once it's mixed in, you're going to have a nice, soft, smooth ball of dough, your giant cinnamon roll. I form the dough into a nice round ball and then place it back into the stand mixing bowl. Cover that stand mixing bowl with some plastic wrap, and now it's time to let it rest. Let it rest at room temperature or rise for about 1 hour, and then place it in the refrigerator for at least 2 hours. You can leave it in the refrigerator as long as overnight, but 2 hours is the minimum. Once the dough has rested and fermented in the refrigerator, it's time to make yours. Split the dough in half and roll each half into a 9 by 13 inch rectangle on a floured surface. Once that dough is rolled into the rectangle, spread each rectangle with 2 tablespoons of your vegan butter, and then split 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar between the 2 pieces of dough. Add a generous amount of cinnamon on top of that. Now for the tricky part. You are going to take one of those pieces of dough and stack it up on top of the other piece of dough. It's a bit tricky, but don't worry, it will all come out okay in the end, even if the 2 pieces of dough don't exactly line up. Once you have the 2 pieces of dough stacked one on top of each other, you want to cut the dough into strips. You can use a tape measure to measure 1 1/2 inch width strips that are 13 inches long. cut the dough into 6 strips, and then we'll place the 6 strips into your cheesecake pan. Line your cheesecake pan with some baking parchment and spray it with a little nonstick spray. The first strip of your dough goes into the middle. Roll it up like a big cinnamon roll, and then take your other strips and lay them around that centerpiece. You might find it easier to work with those strips of dough if you cut them in half. That is fine. It doesn't have to be perfect, and just get them all in there and let them fill the pan. I hope you're enjoying making your giant cinnamon roll. Now it's time for your neuroscience fun food fact. Today we're going to talk about coconut fat. There's a growing body of research that indicates that coconut fat may be important in alleviating Alzheimer's disease, helping traumatic brain injury, and even improving memory in healthy individuals. Coconut fat is unlike the saturated fats found in meat and poultry. About 65% of the fat found in coconut is a fat called MCTs. This fat is readily absorbed by the body, converted in the liver to something called a ketone body. That ketone body can cross the brain blood barrier and get into the brain and will become an important source of energy for the brain. The energy offered by ketone bodies in the brain may be especially helpful for patients with Alzheimer's disease. And there are several small clinical trials that are ongoing looking at this important connection and possible treatment for Alzheimer's disease. Let's get back to baking our cinnamon roll. Remove the giant cinnamon roll from the oven. It should be a golden brown on the top, and pretty much completely fill your your cheesecake pan. Let it cool for about 15 minutes and then remove it from the pan. It'll still be plenty warm. Once you've removed it from the pan, time to make your glaze or frosting for the top of the cinnamon roll. This is also all vegan. You're going to use as your base 1 1/4 cups of powdered sugar, a teaspoon of vanilla, and 2 to 3 tablespoons of coconut cream. If you don't have coconut cream, you can use coconut milk. Put it in the refrigerator when you start making the giant cinnamon roll. Mix up the powdered sugar, vanilla, and coconut cream, and use that to glaze your cinnamon roll. You want it runny enough so that it will kind of ribbon onto the giant cinnamon roll instead of having to spread it on the giant cinnamon roll, as well as run down the edges of the giant cinnamon roll. Serve your giant cinnamon roll warm. I cut it into wedges. And if you want to make the giant cinnamon roll the night before and bake it in the morning, go to my website, growwithdrjoe.com, and I have instructions there for how to do that. Here is my SIS, Simple is Smart tips for this cinnamon roll. When you bake your cinnamon roll, you're going to want to bake it for about 45 minutes. You may notice it's starting to get over brown on top. If that begins to happen, just cover it with a piece of foil the last 20 minutes or so of baking. In addition, sometimes it's hard to tell when it's done. It may look done, but take an instant read thermometer, stick it into the middle of your sticky bun or cinnamon roll, and the temperature should be at least 190 degrees. If it's that temperature or a little above, your cinnamon roll is done and ready to come out of the oven. Thank you for watching. For this recipe and other vegan recipes as well as non-vegan recipes, go to growwithdrjoe.com. Thank you for watching. Please click the like button and subscribe. subscribe so you don't miss any of my vegan recipes as well as my non-vegan recipes.